L'extraordinaire biodiversité de nos océans s'offre en spectacle à chaque plongée. Nous avons la chance, au cours de cette mission, de parcourir la planète pour aller vérifier l'état de cette biodiversité et apprécier toute sa beauté. Mais nous constatons aussi la grande fragilité de l'équilibre entre les espèces. Ce que la nature a mis des millions d'années à peaufiner, à adapter, nous sommes malheureusement en train de le détruire rapidement. Nous avons mis le cap sur l'île Coco, une île rendue célèbre par ses légendes de pirates. On dit que des trésors dérobés aux bateaux espagnols y seraient enfouis quelque part. C'est pourquoi on l'appelle d'ailleurs l'île au trésor. Mais pour les scientifiques, le véritable trésor se trouve probablement dans cette biodiversité marine exceptionnelle. La puissance dans les nageoires d'une tortue verte, c'est vraiment quelque chose de très impressionnant. En fait, les tortues vertes sont d'excellentes nageuses et donc leur anatomie a évolué pour créer une masse musculaire très importante au niveau des articulations, ce qui rend évidemment notre opération de capture plutôt périlleuse. Une fois à bord de l'embarcation pneumatique, la tortue a pu être transportée jusqu'au Sedna 4 où l'attendait toute une équipe de biologistes. Nous avons une sorte d'ascenseur spécial pour les animaux de grande taille et donc cette tortue a pu être descendue jusqu'à l'atelier du Sedna où les biologistes l'attendaient pour installer les différents émetteurs. Pour ce voyage à l'île Coco, nous avons invité deux grands spécialistes des tortues, deux sommités qui travaillent régulièrement dans ce secteur du Pacifique. Ces deux biologistes sont devenus activistes par la force des choses, car ils croient véritablement que c'est par l'action concrète, sur le terrain, qu'on peut faire changer les choses.
Oh, let me see. Is there any 4062 there? No. See, now it's only 181. Verify. Super verify.
One 0 7 4 9 7 4.
Okay. Okay, we hold it
Okay,
here.
so take the measurements and then you do the tagging and I'll tag her. And you can
Okay.
tag her and I'll...
Yeah.
Okay, so hold her there, Cheapo.
Okay.
Okay, put this right there where the skin starts and the shell ends, or like right there, okay.
74 and a half.
Yeah, 74 and a half, yeah, let's say 74 and a half. And width,
What do you got?
72.
72. This is the first time we've caught this turtle. Hasn't been marked before. We're putting a tag on now, permanent tag. Okay.
Check the lock.
Check. Perfect. PE 312.
Where are you gonna do it?
Same place. Wait. Okay, it's locked. PE 313.
This is an acoustic tag, and these are the same tags we use for the sharks. And since we already have a system of listening stations around the island for the sharks, then we use the same system for the turtles. Okay. Okay. We've had turtles with the tag on for over a year, sometimes a few months. And so sometimes it seems like they're pretty permanently in there with cables and everything, but they do fall off.
In the old days of sailors, couldn't keep fresh meat on board for very long, so they would stop at islands like this, grab turtles, put them on their back, and they could last for months. Come down once a week, just pour some water on it to keep it from drying out, and then they could use the meat as they needed. So turtles played a major role in the exploration of the world.
Okay.
The green turtles of the Caribbean that people are more familiar with are purely vegetarians. They eat turtle grass, which is an algae. So they grow very slowly. This satellite transmitter will send a signal up to a satellite up in space, and then that will send the signal to my computer, and I'll know right where this turtle is every day. We're trying to understand what the migration routes are. So when this turtle's here at Cocos Island, it's protected because there's a 12 nautical mile no fishing zone. But as soon as it swims out of that, we don't know. It could get caught on a fishing line and be killed. So our goal is to understand where these turtles go and then create marine protected swimways. So if they're swimming to Galapagos, we want to connect their swimways. We want to understand their migration routes and be able to protect them by closing fishing areas. So as you're doing that, we want to try to keep it kind of as hydrodynamic as we can. We've had turtles go as far as Panama. We've had turtles go to Costa Rica. We've had turtles go to Costa Rica and then swim up the shore all the way to El Salvador and then head back out to sea. And a lot of our turtles like it in Cocos and stay right around here.
The juveniles, or the young ones, they definitely stay here for a number of years. For instance, we have turtles that we tagged here 2.5 years ago, and they're still there in Dirty Rock, for instance. So the young turtles live here, and the adults just swing by, and then they take off and continue their migration.
There are different policies to protect turtles, for instance, special hooks, circle hooks, which they're less likely to swallow. But the best way is to protect the ecosystem, protect the habitat that they need to live. So if we can close those areas to fishing, then we'll have turtles for our kids to see and our grandkids.
Après quelques heures de travail, notre invité peut maintenant retourner à la mer. Randall et Todd ont vérifié le bon fonctionnement des émetteurs et cette tortue verte du Pacifique peut maintenant recouvrer sa liberté.
Now we have to be careful with the satellite transmitter. So let's do the right back here. Oh, you got the hook? Okay. Careful with the satellite transmitter. Okay. I'm basically, yes, in love with turtles. Thank you.
Thanks to you. Je pense qu'on peut dire mission accomplie. Les données maintenant qui seront recueillies par cet émetteur satellite vont permettre de mieux connaître les déplacements de cette tortuette et permettront peut-être un jour d'établir des corridors de protection, des zones bien définies où la pêche sera interdite. Mais il faut bien sûr encore beaucoup de campagnes de sensibilisation parce qu'il reste beaucoup de travail à faire avant que ces mesures, pourtant essentielles, se réalisent. Les plages constituent des habitats essentiels pour les tortues marines. Les tortues viennent y pondre leurs œufs depuis des millions d'années et c'est ce qui garantit en quelque sorte la survie des différentes espèces de tortues sur notre planète. Pas de plage, pas de tortues marines, c'est aussi simple que ça. Mais ces plages se sont beaucoup transformées au cours des dernières années depuis qu'une espèce a connu un boom démographique exceptionnel, l'humanité. Non seulement nous utilisons et transformons ces plages pour nos loisirs, mais le développement immobilier réduit sans cesse ces habitats essentiels pour les tortues. C'est intéressant parce qu'une tortue va revenir pondre ses œufs exactement au même endroit là où elle a vu le jour il y a très longtemps. Elle va revenir évidemment quand elle aura atteint sa maturité sexuelle, ce qui peut prendre 15, 20, 30 ou même 40 ans chez certaines espèces. Après toutes ces années, lorsque les tortues reviennent, elles vont plutôt retrouver des plages qui sont souvent peuplées avec des maisons, des lumières qui les désorientent complètement la nuit ou des terrasses d'hôtels aménagées. C'est donc pas facile pour une tortue de venir pondre ses œufs maintenant en toute sécurité.
Usted es de aquí.
De nosotros.
¿Qué es lo que representan las bolas para usted?
Ay, no sé, algo lindo que yo siento. Algo lindo que a mí me nace y que yo no quisiera que se desapareciera. Yo, digamos, cuando yo me crié chiquilla, yo me recuerdo que mi papá los llevaba a la playa. Decía, vamos a la playa a sacar huevos.
¿Y era normal?
Pero a comer.
¿Era normal?
Sí, para comer, no para negocio.
Era dentro de la cultura.
Sí. Uh-huh.
¿Y cómo era la situación en esa época con las baulas?
Ay, no, era algo lindo, porque eran baulas en cantidad. Salían por noche, una cosa lindísima. Los biólogos decían que eso iba a ir bajando. Cada temporada ellos hablaban eso, pero decía yo, qué mentira, porque hay bastante baula. Y sí lo hizo, sí lo fue. Y que ellos decían que había que cuidarlas porque las baulas se iban a ir.
¿Listos? Vamos.
Fueron años difíciles. para las personas, muy difíciles. No había muchas fuentes de trabajo y la gente se dedicaba a la agricultura, ganadería, trabajar en los campos, pesca, y el dinero que ganaban no era mucho. Entonces había que hacer algo extra para ayudar a la familia, al sustento de las familias. Y un dinero fácil era venir a coger los huevos de las tortugas, ya que eran bien remunerados, bien pagados. Yo fui parte de esa gente. Ponías una estaca, pedazo de madera, de aquí, caminabas 50, 100 metros, o si podías más, ponías más lejos. Entonces todas las tortugas que venían en ese pedazo eran tuyas. Antes venían 200, 300, hasta 400 tal vez en una noche. Ahora llegan en este tiempo, en este momento, 1, 2, 3, máximo ha sido 5. Entonces la gente venía, esperaban que estuviera lista, cogían los huevos, sacaban, metían dentro de un saco. El comprahuevo te esperaba en la calle, en la salida, con un carro de cajón. Entonces en una noche podía sacar 100 docenas, 120 docenas, el que se ponía en una parte mejor. Y pagaban a 400 colones, si más no recuerdo, 500 o 600 colones la docena. Entonces, saca la cuenta, 100 docenas a 400. Buen dinero.
On vient de rencontrer 2 policiers et évidemment, j'ai pris le temps de leur demander c'est quoi la réalité policière. Et évidemment, ça ne tentait pas de le faire devant la caméra, mais qu'est-ce qu'ils m'ont dit clairement, c'est qu'il y a des braconniers, surtout dans les secteurs de l'autre côté de la baie, et les gens vendent leurs œufs à travers, la couverture d'Ostinal. Ostinal, c'est un endroit à peu près à 2 heures d'ici où il y a des arrivadas énormes de tortues. Et c'est comme si, lui il me l'a avoué, c'est comme si c'était le blanchiment des œufs à Ostinal. Donc le fait que tout le monde dit que les œufs viennent d'Ostinal, donc on peut les vendre. Il me racontait même qu'il y avait des bars où pour $1, on peut avoir une super bière froide avec un magnifique coco, des tortues, avec un peu de tabasco. On boit ça, puis ça a l'air que c'est l'extase. Donc, dans la communauté, il y a encore une relation particulière avec les œufs.
Bueno, esta noche los voy a llevar a una de las playas que yo creo que es más importante para la anidación de tortugas negras en nuestro país, al menos. Se llama Nombre de Jesús. Está a escasos, es una zona boscosa, realmente muy agradable. No hay construcciones en estos momentos y realmente es un sitio muy apto para la anidación de estas especies. Crear o conservar especies que están en peligro de extinción como estas requiere un compromiso de todos. Hay grandes intereses, todos entendemos eso, interés científico, interés de las comunidades, el interés de los desarrolladores, el interés de los pescadores. Sin embargo, es importante lograr ese objetivo común que nos pueda potenciar ese esfuerzo de conservación. Otro de los actores claves importantes que de alguna manera ha ayudado.
Rodney, ¿es el único acceso para ir a la playa?
En realidad por vehículos sí tenemos este único acceso, sin embargo hay una posibilidad de ingresar vía caminando, pero hay que atravesar una montaña que de verdad se complica un poco el acceso.
Está difícil, ¿eh?
Tal vez por el centro de las rocas.
Y por ahí,
sí.
con una rueda por aquí y el otro por acá.
Listo. Perfecto. Nuestro país tiene áreas protegidas y áreas no protegidas, específicamente este sitio que es un área de anidación importante. En estos momentos estamos haciendo todo un esfuerzo de conservación para lograr de alguna manera crear alguna categoría de manejo en esta área y continuar con la protección de esta especie. Bueno, cada noche que llegamos a la playa, nuestro grupo se organiza. Una de las cosas que hacemos cuando entramos a la playa es que todo el grupo se reúne y camina toda la playa juntos. La idea es saber cómo está el comportamiento de la situación, si hay gente en playa, no hay, si hay tortugas. Entonces la idea es tener un momento de tranquilidad todos para ver la situación. Una vez que encontremos un rastro, nos detenemos en ese sitio, verificamos qué está haciendo la tortuga e inmediatamente nos ordenamos para trabajar todos juntos.
Y lo que me explicabas que éramos varios por la cuestión de los hueveros que...
La idea es que cuando entramos en grupo es precisamente para que si hay gente que le gusta sacar los huevos, vea, viene un montón de gente que son protectores de tortugas, entonces no es solo una o dos personas, si son 3, 4, 5 que están respaldados todos juntos. No, sí, ya vi.
Esas luces en el fondo que
creemos que pueden ser hueveros. Entonces a partir de ahora vamos a manejarnos con más cautela.
Nous avons décidé de profiter de la nuit, nous aussi, pour assister au grand spectacle de la ponte des tortues vertes. Il est plutôt déconseillé de s'aventurer seul sur les plages dans certains secteurs du Costa Rica. Les braconniers sont encore très actifs et nous avons donc décidé d'accompagner l'équipe de biologistes du Parc national de Las Bolas dans leur effort de conservation des sites de ponte. Il faut le dire, dans certains secteurs du Costa Rica, ça joue dur. Depuis quelques années, le trafic de drogue est maintenant associé au trafic des œufs de tortue. Un braconnier peut toucher jusqu'à 300 $ la nuit simplement en revendant ses œufs de tortue sur le marché noir, des œufs qui se détaillent à environ 1 $ l'unité. En 2012, par exemple, un groupe de braconniers lourdement armés s'est introduit dans une crèche, une place où on recueille des œufs de tortue jusqu'à leur maturité. Ces œufs de tortue sont ramassés sur les plages par des bénévoles. Bien, ces bénévoles ont été ligotés et les braconniers se sont emparés de plus de 1500 œufs de tortue. Alors, le message est clair. Les trafiquants, comme les braconniers, ne veulent pas voir de protecteurs de tortues sur leur plage.
Okay, lo que vamos a medir primero es el largo del caparazón y posteriormente el ancho del caparazón. La idea es que usted vaya al otro lado y revise si hay una marca metálica o una identificación. ¿Okay? Y el número de identificación se lo dicta a ella para que ella pueda escribirlo en la hoja. Okay.
LO628.
Listo. Escriba ahí.
¿Cuántos?
Así, sí.
Oh, wow. ¿Qué es lo que voy a hacer? Voy a hacer esto para poderlos reubicar. Ahorita es complicado porque hay muchas raíces.
¿Quieres que lo ayude?
No, no, está ahí. Ah, wow. Que anda hoy en playa. Entonces, hoy vamos a tomar la decisión de remover los huevos o reubicar estos huevos a otro sitio aquí en la misma playa. Entonces, posiblemente vayan a ver cuando los saquemos y los reubiquemos. Okay. Normalmente, si fuese un área protegida, entonces los niños quedan in situ. Entonces tenemos protección del sitio 24 horas. Pero en este momento no tenemos posibilidad de proteger la playa 24 horas. Entonces nos vemos obligados a mover los huevos a otro sitio.
¿Cuántos hay?
Por el momento, 56.
¿Cuánto tiempo? ¿10 minutos más o menos se paran?
Ella puede durar 15 minutos, entre 10 y 15 minutos poniendo huevos.
Ahí sigue poniendo.
Ahí sigue poniendo.
Como las baulas tienen, ella tiene el momento que está poniendo los huevos, tiene un momento de trance, ¿sí? Como las hormonas, como las baulas o es diferente.
Sí, de hecho todas las tortugas entran en un proceso de trance para mover sus músculos y poder empezar a expulsar los huevos.
Okay.
Por esa razón, cuando ella termina, hay que irse porque sí. Entonces ya ella empieza a lanzar.
Ah oui, c'est incroyable de voir qu'elle fait tout ce travail, ça fait une demi-heure qu'elle prépare tout, là elle referme tout avec autant d'attention, puis là les œufs sont même pas là. Elle ne sait même pas que ces œufs sont même pas là.
Ahora lo que vamos a hacer es que vamos a reubicar los huevos a un sitio seguro en la misma playa. Nuestros muchachos en estos momentos están haciendo el hueco para ubicarlos en este sitio que consideramos que es bastante seguro.
¿Cuántos metros va a ser esto?
La idea es que la profundidad sea similar a la profundidad del hueco que excavó la tortuga. Entonces estamos hablando de 45 a 50 centímetros. En estos momentos lo que Luis va a hacer es, una vez que ya lleguemos a la profundidad adecuada, vamos a moverlos en el sitio.
Ce qui est fantastique, c'est que pendant des générations, ces jeunes-là auraient normalement appris à devenir braconniers. Là, c'est la nouvelle génération. Et avec le changement de mentalité, tu vois, c'est tout à fait l'inverse. C'est les jeunes qui prennent les choses en main puis qui essaient de sauvegarder les tortues. C'est pas mal.
Y posteriormente los vamos a ubicar con una plaquita de aluminio que nos permite a nosotros identificar en los próximos 45 días, que es cuando se da la exhumación de los neonatos, Ahora lo que vamos a hacer es que vamos a echar arena en el nido y Luis lo que va a hacer es que lo va a compactar. Pues la idea es compactar lo más que se pueda para que los huevos queden seguros en el sitio. Y posteriormente vamos a marcarlo con respecto al mojón que está allá.
If the poacher find the little stick.
Ahora lo que hacemos es que esta marca la vamos a enterrar, la vamos a poner sobre arena.
Okay.
Entonces la idea es que la marca es simple y sencillamente para que cuando lo encontremos podamos hacer relación de ese nido con esta hoja. Entonces así yo sé exactamente cuál tortuga fue la que puso estos huevos y cómo es el éxito de eclosión de esta tortuga con respecto a este nido y todos sus nidos.
Sobre estos 82, ¿cuántos van a ir al agua?
Los éxitos de eclosión, por ejemplo, la temporada anterior anduvo entre un 80 y un 90%.
C'est formidable de voir l'implication des jeunes bénévoles pour la sauvegarde des tortues. Leur travail sur les plages va permettre de sauver un grand nombre de tortues, certes, mais il va surtout servir au changement des mentalités. Ce changement, il est essentiel puisqu'on veut que la nouvelle génération modifie ses habitudes de consommation et condamne le braconnage. Je pense que cette nouvelle génération sera prête à tout mettre en œuvre pour sauver ces espèces menacées d'extinction.
Quedan muy pocas personas que se dedican al saqueo de huevos.
¿Qué es lo que cambió?
La mentalidad de las personas y el que Tamarindo haya crecido en cuanto a zona turística, porque hay más fuentes de empleo.
¿Y tú qué haces ahora?
Ahora trabajo como guía turístico. Después pasamos a ser promotores turísticos, de los cuales nos enseñaron un poco sobre biología de la tortuga.
La présence des braconniers a diminué sur les plages dans le secteur de Guanacaste, surtout depuis la création du parc national de Las Bolas. Aujourd'hui, les touristes viennent d'un peu partout pour assister au grand spectacle de la ponte des tortues. Mais le braconnage demeure un enjeu important dans certains secteurs du Costa Rica et le trafic illégal des œufs menace encore aujourd'hui la survie des espèces. Il est essentiel de poursuivre le travail d'éducation si nous voulons sauver ces espèces menacées d'extinction.
Entonces el objetivo es precisamente mantener la población que anida en el sitio. Y para mantener la población que anida en el sitio necesitamos que esos huevos se reproduzcan en el sitio. Y creemos que esfuerzos como los que estamos desarrollando en este momento son sumamente importantes si realmente queremos conservar especies tan importantes y hermosas como estas.
¿Cómo lo ve para el futuro?
Yo creo que hay un compromiso de parte nuestra muy fuerte. Estamos convencidos y la esperanza es poder recuperar estas poblaciones. Claro, pero eso ha sido un proceso de mucho tiempo, de educación de niños, de educación de gente y de compromiso. Y creo que el país, Costa Rica, cada vez adquiere más conciencia ambiental, más compromiso, hay más gente involucrada con eso. Y ahora no solo organizaciones, sino que las mismas comunidades se están involucrando en proteger estos recursos. Y lo más importante es que se van empoderando de esto y lo hacen propio. Yo creo que el hecho de que todas las noches trasnochemos o estemos trabajando hasta 6 o 7 horas logrando salvar todo nido es sumamente importante. Yo sé que tal vez este esfuerzo de conservación no lo veamos en el corto plazo y posiblemente nuestra generación no vea sus resultados y que los vayamos a ver en el largo plazo, pero posiblemente sean nuestros hijos y los veamos en los próximos 20 o 30 años y decimos, bueno, aquellos que trabajaron al principio tuvieron la visión y no desmayaron para conservar, ahora tenemos que continuar con...
Bueno,
¿Vamos a dormir?
Vamos a dormir.
Vamos a dormir.
Vamos.
Por favor.
It's an animal which has a flexible shell because it's not hard bone. It's got little bones with cartilage in between. It's got a leathery shell, that's where it gets its name, a skin like a dolphin on the shell and on the flippers. It has a pink spot on the middle of its head, which is where the pineal gland is. It has some signaling for hormones. The skull's only half as thick there. They can dive a mile deep like a whale, so the shell collapses when they do that, gets compressed. And they only eat jellyfish, so they must be our friend. We don't like jellyfish.
She looks to be about 145 centimeters long, probably around 18 to 20 years of age, and she's finished nesting. She's now in the process of early bearing, but you can see how delicately she's using her hands to pat the sand down and to pack it so that the eggs are in a nice location, and then she will start to camouflage and cover all around here.
When we came here, the number of turtles nesting per year was 1,500. And then it declined exponentially, so by big steps. To the present time, there's about maybe 50 nesting a year. But it's bottomed out the last 3 or 4 years, so we think that we're due for a comeback. The new turtles that we see now are as a result of these students and volunteers who are on this beach for 20 years. And so, yeah, those are our turtles who are coming back.
You have an opportunity to see a dinosaur come out of the ocean and do all these very intricate behaviors. And I don't think there's anybody who ever walks away from this beach after seeing this experience that hasn't been awed.
The first time we came on the beaches here, Frank Palladino had to pay the local poacher for permission to work on a turtle after he took the eggs. Then he was okay if we studied the physiology of the turtle. After the park was founded and we got more involved and Frank taught the people English and we taught them some biology, now those poachers all became guides, ecotourism guides, so they make more money, cleaner. Now at this point their children are the guides.
Right now, this is a national park. There's national park guards. We have very good protection. There's an occasional poacher, which is usually a stranger who's come into town, and a lot of times they're Nicaraguans that come down here to work on construction of homes and so on, and they want to make some quick money so they can catch a bus and go back home and visit their family. But for the most part, the local people are no longer the poachers. As a matter of fact, whereas before they were against the park, it is the local people who are the strongest supporters of the park.
When we first came here, the people used to be poachers. They hated us. They didn't like us in the local village. Now we're friends. Our students are friends with the young people. I think it made a big difference. So the people see that these turtles are a benefit to them. I think it's very important.
Le travail acharné de Frank Palladino, James Potilla et des nombreux bénévoles est vraiment inspirant et prouve que les mentalités peuvent être changées. Mais il reste encore beaucoup de travail à faire dans certains secteurs du Costa Rica. En 2013, par exemple, un jeune étudiant en biologie de 26 ans, Hero Mora Sandoval, a été enlevé avec 4 autres patrouilleurs sur une des plages du Costa Rica. Les trafiquants de drogue et les braconniers en ont assez de ces campagnes de sauvegarde des tortues. Ils veulent retrouver leur plage. Ce soir-là, le jeune biologiste a été ligoté, battu, et on l'a retrouvé avec une balle dans la tête. Hero Mora Sandoval est mort simplement pour avoir voulu sauver une espèce menacée d'extinction. Cette histoire tragique a fait le tour du monde et les groupes environnementaux ont préparé la riposte. Une récompense est maintenant offerte pour trouver les coupables et le gouvernement du Costa Rica a promis une enquête. La sauvegarde des tortues et la protection des plages passent bien souvent par le travail de passionnés, des bénévoles qui viennent d'un peu partout sur la planète pour participer aux efforts de protection des tortues. Malheureusement, l'intimidation et la violence sont souvent les armes des braconniers, et ça, peu importe où on se trouve dans le monde. Il faut continuer de valoriser les efforts de protection, encourager la présence de bénévoles sur les plages et tout mettre en œuvre pour initier les changements de mentalité qui constituent probablement le seul véritable espoir pour demain.
Our expedition around the world led us to discover and appreciate the extraordinary biodiversity of our planet. Of all the species encountered during our travels, there is one that particularly impressed us, an animal that looks like a siren, and that has been the source of many legends over time, a creature that continues to fascinate mankind. This creature is the manatee.
The manatee is a marine mammal in the order Sirenia. Sirenia for sirens, which in some languages means mermaids. The mermaid legend likely first arose in the thoughts of lonely sailors, who imagined the body of a woman with the tail of a fish. This history also links the manatee with the siren song, a kind of luring marine lament, which some believe is the origin of the French name for the manatee, lamentin. The manatee lives in coastal areas, environments that are becoming less and less wild, which is why coexisting with humans has become a problem. Coastlines are increasingly inhabited by humans, destroying essential habitat for this threatened species. The implications are troubling. Manatee populations are threatened with extinction around the world. Located south of Mexico and east of Guatemala, Belize is home to a population of manatees that use the country's bays and lagoons as essential habitat.
Belize is a popular tourist destination. Each year, the country hosts tourists from around the world. And when you say tourists, you're inevitably saying boats. Lots of boats. Since manatees are rather slow creatures living near the coast, it's almost inevitable that there will be collisions between manatees and motorized vessels. This is probably the main threat to the survival of populations of manatees at this time.
But Belize has decided to participate in efforts to protect manatees. Each year, scientists gather in the tiny village of Gales Point near Southern Lagoon, which opens directly onto the Caribbean. The scientists work closely with local residents, whom they involve in their research. Some scientists travel great distances to study manatees here. Biologist James Buddy Powell is in charge of the research, and he has worked with veterinarian Bob Bundy for decades.
It's going to be a good day to go out and catch some manatees today. It's a lot of preparation, takes a lot of people.
It's made in China, like
and we're ready to do it. We have a lot of experience catching manatees, so a very experienced team. It's not very risky. The weather's perfect, and we're almost set to go.
Let's take the poles and move them up to the
Let's actually take the poles and move them to the other boat. This is Southern Lagoon, lots of manatees here. What we'll do is we'll take the boat, there's a small channel that winds up to this smaller lagoon, and it's called quasi-trout, which is an excellent place to catch. It's usually very calm in there, shallow enough, hard bottom, and there's some holes there that manatees go into and a food that they prefer called haladuli. And so we're going to start there. It's a good place to start. It's very safe. It's an easy catch if we find some there. It's a good place to start for us.
Great.
Okay.
Basically, we're on patrol. All the eyes on the water help us to see the manatee. When the sun's out and it's nice and clear, we can use our polarized glasses and we can see disturbances in the water. We're looking for mud plumes and things that might be associated with manatees foraging, feeding, or cavorting. And then when we see something, we'll drive into that situation, assess it, and then set the nets.
To find a manatee in the turbid waters of the lagoon is a real challenge. You're forced to rely on ripples in the surface of the water to try to figure out where the animal might be. Or you look for some kind of mud cloud in the water, a mud cloud created by the movement of their tail fins. And, if you're lucky, you'll see a small part of its head when it surfaces to breathe. So, it takes a lot of experience, sharp vision, and I must say, a bit of luck.
When the team spots a manatee, Buddy quickly begins to circle the animal with his specially designed boat. The net is quickly deployed, and everyone involved, biologists, veterinarians, and local residents, prepare to dive into the lagoon to secure the net.
Everyone jumps in the water around the edge of the net to stabilize the net to make sure it doesn't drift. And then once we get all the boat situated and the net situated, we put more people in the water with a small net that we just go in and sort of scoop them out with that small net in principle to bring them into our capture net, which is where we do all the medical work. This is such a great spot, not only because it's a good place for manatees, but the bottom and the conditions are just perfect for these types of captures, which is what has allowed us to do such a long-term study like this.
One, two, big one. Pull, guy, pull, man. Pull, man. Pull.
How many places can you go and find yourself next to an animal that weighs 1,000 pounds, kneel down and pat it on the back without getting trampled to death or bitten or speared or whatever? I love manatees. I didn't learn anything that discouraged me not to. In fact, every day I get up, we learn something new. They're a marine mammal. They're very aquatically adapted. So they're quite different than most other mammals, so different that they're in their own order, the order Sirenia. Now, they're more closely related to elephants. If you look at them, the teats are underneath the front flippers here. The nails are similar. The skin is a little bit similar. But rather than having a trunk like an elephant that they can use to pick up a peanut and bring it up to their mouth, manatees have this very prehensile muzzle, and it's used to grab vegetation, cull it up out of the bottom, and bring it into their body. Manatees have these hairs on the body, and we see the vibrissae on the front of their face, which are like a whisker on a dog or a cat. But these are also whiskers on the body, and they act like a lateral line. So this manatee doesn't need its eyes to see you in the water. They're using the sensory organ on their body that enables them to basically visualize what's going on around them. They lost their hind limbs. Of course, they don't need them to propel through the water. They use these for steerage, their front flippers, and the tail is a spatula that helps them kind of push and propel themselves through the water effortlessly.
From afar, the strange silhouette of the manatee may explain why sailors once associated this marine creature with the mermaids of their imaginations.
Once the manatee is caught and brought on board the research vessel, biologists and veterinarians set about their tasks. And they are truly impressive. They have a very well-established work protocol. It's almost as if we were in a hospital and a dozen doctors gathered around to produce a complete health diagnosis.
The coordinates go right here, and you have to kind of feel in the gum. There we go. We just placed a temperature probe between her gum and her last molar, just so we can get a sense of her body temperature, her oral temperature. So if it rises too much, we'll know to keep her cool. Okay. So if she needs to breathe, just over the nostrils.
11:16. Austin, or 11:15. We're measuring the subcutaneous fat layers, and that will give us an information about a nutritional condition. It doesn't tell us the condition of the fat per se, but it gives us the thickness of the fat.
Sticking. Zero, zero.
A sort of microchip is implanted under the skin of the animal to facilitate identification. With the aid of this chip, the scientists can then identify each animal by its unique number. So, if a manatee is recaptured, the medical team will be able to monitor their patient over a period of time. It really is medical care applied to animals.
Belize certainly has been very proactive in terms of trying to establish protected areas for manatees. By protecting manatees, you're also protecting habitat, and very important productive habitat like coastal estuaries and lagoons. So manatees are known as a flagship species that helps us be able to protect these types of habitats that might be threatened.
Before the animal is released, it must be weighed. A delicate operation that requires special care, since the normally docile manatee can sometimes react violently.
Okay, we just need
$8.32.
Bring it on, bring it on. Let's go. One more. Three.
Buddy Powell has been fascinated by manatees since childhood. This Floridian encountered these strange marine creatures at an early age. They lived in the waters surrounding his hometown. The manatees of Florida are probably the best known of their species on the planet. They have become particularly well known as victims of collisions with boats. One day, someone was fascinated enough to make a film about the manatees. That person was Jacques Cousteau, and Buddy Powell's destiny changed completely after he met the captain of the Calypso.
When I was 14 years old, the fellow named Daniel Hartman was working on his PhD from Cornell University, and he came to my hometown, Crystal River, which is now very famous for manatees. So he was out on the water, and it was obvious he was out of place, and so I was kind of curious because I was on the water all the time, and finally went up to him, and we started talking. And we ended up becoming friends. He sort of took me on as his field assistant, and I worked with him for a couple years while he was doing his PhD work. And then a number of years later, he had written an article for National Geographic, and the Cousteaus saw this article and wanted to do the first documentary on manatees. And so he told them, get a hold of this kid in Crystal River, which they did. And so I ended up being their guide for over a year when they were doing this first documentary. And that's really what began the momentum for all the conservation work and protected areas and measures that we have for manatees today.
Manatees are very docile creatures, and they're docile because they're very intelligent. And we use an adage, an elephant never forgets. Well, manatees have to remember. They have to have rote memorization that allows them to go back to a place and find it later. And the training starts when they're very young. The mother trains the baby, and then the baby picks up on that and emulates that. They don't produce a lot of babies, one baby every 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So they invest a lot into making sure that baby has all of the tools it needs to meet the challenges in the environment. If it doesn't, if it falls short, the animal will die. So these animals, to be long-lived, have to invest a lot of effort into the rearing of the young.
Pull, man! Pull back!
Okay, let's pull that net that way, bring him over slowly.
This time it's not one, but 2 manatees in the research boat. The small vessel is getting a bit crowded, but the biologists and veterinarians have a well-established routine, and it is amazing how efficiently their work is accomplished, particularly impressive when one realizes that their research will serve the scientific community of the entire world.
Manatees are great. I think that I am passionate about because it's something unique to my country.
Hey guys, we need to roll her a little bit.
With Buddy Powell and Bob Bundy and the whole team, it's been wonderful. We've built up this data set like no other for manatees, especially the Antillean subspecies. We're getting information that we can apply for management decisions in this country, and we've been able to take advantage of what they have learned, and we can implement it. So that's a great advantage for us.
You can always do a scrub of bigger and then alcohol.
We're going to take a tissue biopsy that we use for genetics to tell us the fingerprint of this manatee, basically. And to get that sample, we just use some Novocaine. We apply it with a needle into the skin here. This is the same medicine that numbs the skin that the dentist would use to extract a tooth or to do dental work, and we use it on the manatee so that it's less painful when we take the biopsy sample. We use it for several things: stable isotopes, to look at the food the manatee's been feeding on and what his chemical makeup is, and then we'll use it for genetics in pedigree studies and fingerprinting studies of individuals. We've actually done quite a few studies that have been published on these Belizean manatees to tell us a little bit more about evolution of manatees in general.
So it's pretty special this morning. 2 females, one of whom may be pregnant. And it's really amazing to see how well all the veterinarians and biologists have been trained. They can do a whole series of procedures in about 50 minutes. It's really a well-oiled machine. And it's extraordinary to see how quiet and calm the animals are.
Are we ready?
Okay, ready?
We do call this a cookie, and we do that because it resembles an Oreo. Dark on the outside, white on the inside. It's not meant to eat, but it gives us the food for knowledge, and we learn through studying this little piece of tissue It gives us some information about this manatee, which helps us to understand about manatees literally in general.
And right now, how's the population status there?
Yeah, well, actually, it's pretty good. You know, they don't have a lot of allelic diversity, so there isn't a lot of variation. A lot of the individuals are similar-like, but maybe they're similar-like for certain reasons, that they perfected this habitat, this environment, and that their DNA is best used and utilized to achieve that.
I'm here. I made it.
Okay, now bring that.
Things got a bit out of hand during the weighing. Our two manatees became a bit edgy and knocked overboard everything that was nearby, including the huge structure that was used to weigh them, along with some biologists, veterinarians, and even members of the film crew. Really an impressive display of strength. With their caudal fins, they can break your bones in a flash. There are occasions when it's best just to abandon ship.
He's going to be trying to flap all up in here. I'd rather his tail be back there.
What is surprising is to see how these remarkably calm animals can become so aggravated. They're able to lift their tails approximately 1 or 1.5 meters. This is extraordinary, so it's best not to be too close at such moments. The manatees weigh 1,000 pounds. Because it's so quiet and 4 or 5 people are around, everything looks okay, but as soon as it starts moving, it's not long before everyone's overboard.
Amanda, do we have a temperature?
A lot of students come from abroad to gather data, to collect and do analysis in the U.S. in particular, but it's an opportunity for Belizean students as well. And what I'd like to see is more Belizeans getting involved, more Belizeans on the ground, collecting data and using it for advanced degrees, but we haven't been able to capitalize quite as much on that as we'd like to. So that is something that I'd definitely like to push for the future.
When we first started the study, or early on, Jamal would show up at our dock at the morning, sort of looking at us. He was about 11 years old, and he kept wanting to get on the boat, but he was too young. We found out later that Jamal, with some of his friends in the village there, that they, instead of playing cowboys and Indians, they'd play Buddy and Bob and take turns on who would get to drive the boat and who would catch the manatees. And so they would pretend that they were circling the manatees. And later on, he was just so enthusiastic. We invited him to come on board as a volunteer, and then just one thing led to another. He was always part of our crew, and he continued every year. And I think it enabled him to sort of see that there was more out there besides just what was in his village. And so he's continued on through his high school and now gotten his AA degree from the university. And he adores manatees and science and research and learning.
This conservation field, I think, is something that I was born to do. And it's not necessarily a job to me, but it's my playing field. It's where I like being. It's where I'm in my glory, and it means more than anything to me. Because this is where my passion is, this is where my heart is.
As a scientist, it's extremely important to write scientific papers and publish. But what's really fulfilling, but also extremely important, is the people you leave there and leave behind and what you can contribute. Just like Daniel Hartman, again, did for me when I was 14 years old.
Jamal, a child of the village, grew up and today is living his dream. Acknowledged internationally for his work as a biologist and manatee researcher. Just as Jacques Cousteau once did for a boy in Florida, Buddy Powell. Dreams come true, and careers are forged out of passion and determination.
Despite conservation efforts in Belize, despite campaigns to try to reduce the speed of vessels, collisions are inevitable since these manatees are slow animals and they use the same areas as the boats. And collisions with boats may have truly catastrophic consequences for manatees.
This young manatee lost its mother when she was hit by a boat. In poor health, the orphan was rescued by Jamal, the young local biologist. Fortunately, today it is doing better, thanks to the care of a manatee rehabilitation center, Wild Tracks.
Wild Tracks is a non-profit organization, and under that we have a number of programs, including the Manatee Rehabilitation Program that cares for injured and orphaned manatee calves throughout the country, are brought in here when they need care. So our role with that is to raise them up, give them the skills to be able to then survive once they're released back into the wild.
When did you start Wild Tracks?
The actual overall programs we started in 1990. Back in 99 we started the Manatee Rehabilitation Program as one program under the organization as a whole.
And how many manatees did you have since?
So far 10. Thankfully not huge numbers, which would be a really bad indication of the status of the wild population, the pressures, but yeah, it's normally 1 or 2 manatees here in care at any one time.
And how long are they staying in average?
About 2 to 2.5 years. So here we're going to have the crew forming a line. We're going to move him through the gate and catch him on the other side here. So it takes enough people to have going up here, one to make sure he's not in a corner, move him through the gateway, and then we'll guide him into this corner for actually lifting him out. This guy came in very emaciated in February of this year. His condition was critical, so we had to get food in. So he's been nasogastric tube fed, so a feeding tube up the nostril down into the stomach, and stayed on with that. So it's rather invasive, but it is what saved his life. You know, without that, there's just no way we'd have kept him alive.
The residents live in a natural basin within the lagoon that has been fenced off. Because they do not suffer the stress of an artificial environment, it is easier to reintroduce them into the wild.
Bring that forward. Right, you ready to lift? Yep. Okay. Count 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Lift your wing a little bit higher. Leo, keep him straight. A little bit higher. Keep his tail off if you can. Just take him head in and then turn him round. That's good. Great. Now, Leon, if you could do the feed net, or maybe if you do the water. Okay. So we wait for that breath, insert the tube whilst the nostril's open. We see the valves closed, and then we push the tube in slowly and carefully, trying to ease it to make sure it goes down the esophagus into the stomach. We have the tube measured against the back end of his flipper to make sure that we're reaching into his stomach about here. When he came in, we were feeding him twice a day. Now we've cut it down to once a day, even once every second day, because we're trying to encourage him to eat more of the seagrass himself, because this is obviously a pretty invasive system, but when you've got a very emaciated animal, you have to get food in as fast as you can and get the condition up. He's still probably 80 to 100 pounds underweight as compared with what he should be at this age. they'll lose weight really fast, but it takes quite a long time to put it on. And this is one way of getting the food into him. He came in at just under a year old, just pre-weaning, minimum weaning age, which is a very difficult age to get them onto a bottle. So he refused to take a bottle. His condition was so poor, we had to get nutrient into him immediately. The only option we had was to start him on nasogastric tube feeding. We can make up a very high energy, high protein milk mix such as this, and we know he's getting everything apart from the dribbles I'm spilling out here.
I suppose that, you know, every survival animal are very important because the population is pretty low around here.
Indeed. As an endangered subspecies, you know, it's critical to get as many back into the wild population as possible. Estimates vary for the Belize population anywhere from 500 to a maximum of 1,000 animals. Even if it's 1,000, that's not a very big population, and that's the biggest population of this species in its range. So getting each individual back into the breeding population is clearly a very important task.
So she will be happy to go back in the water.
Indeed. Yeah, it's always straight down and take that breath of air and done for today. Okay, well, let's move him in. Okay, ready? And down. So he'll probably go down and come up about halfway along the pool for a fresh breath of air, I suspect.
Another resident was waiting at the door of the enclosure. In fact, every day when the darkness sets in, Twiggy, a former resident of the center, returns to spend a night safely inside the enclosure.
So now Twig is fitted with a radio transmitter that floats up. It makes it a lot easier finding out where she... In fact, there she is, just over there. You can see her just coming in. So we'll have one of the girls open up, let her in, then someone else can feed her down here.
And this one is an old friend of you.
Yep, she's been here for 3 years now. She's accustomed to us and vice versa. And actually the last bit of rehabilitation is standing back, so they're learning to step back from people. In the first 6 months after release, it's also, okay, no one anywhere near, because obviously as a wild animal, she's got to keep away from people rather than coming in the way she's still accustomed to coming in for feed. She's been on learning to live out loose for about 18 months now, so one of our assistants from the village started taking her out loose, supervised, taught her how to eat seagrass. He'd actually pick seagrass and eat it himself to show her. Gradually we'd step back, so instead of being with her, we'd leave her alone for an hour, 2 hours, until now she's let out about 6 o'clock in the morning. She'll go out all day grazing seagrass, and then about 4:30 in the afternoon she's coming back in to have a little banana shake and stay in her sleeping area for the night. So yeah, it's quite a good routine she's got, and we're just gradually extending, taking her further out, letting her explore further out. Now she has a transmitter, so we know where she is, until eventually she'll be going out through the creeks out to the bay itself.
Buddy, Bob, and their team have left Gales Point for the busy waters of Belize City. Here, maritime traffic represents a real threat to the manatee population.
Hunting is what has caused the population of manatees in Belize and generally the Americas to be at a threatened level. Sailors, pirates that would use the waters in Belize used to hunt the manatees, and there is evidence around these keys as well, where Moho Key, which is not too far off Belize City, was a hunting site. Probably the Mayas also hunted them.
Now the hunting has been replaced by them being killed by boats. And so I feel like more than you can study an animal and watch its decline, but at this point, the information that we gather and what we do is aimed at trying to reduce those threats. right, guys, let me assign boats. Okay, one of you go on the capture boat. You decide. And then the other person can go on the fisheries boat. You're on the capture boat. Trenton, you're swimming. You guys stay where you are. Maureen, you're on the fisheries boat.
We get about 20 to 25% of deaths that will be positively identified as being from a watercraft. And we can identify that either from external injuries where the propeller will severely scar the animal where it would open up the animal, or we would open the animal during a necropsy. And when we open it, it looks fine from the outside, but when we open it, we might find a broken rib that has maybe punctured the lung. And the only thing that would cause that would be a boat.
So if we were in Florida, this entire coastline would just be condominiums and houses and boats going this way and that way that the manatees would have to contend with. You would never see an animal without one boat strike. One of the reasons we're doing this study in this particular place is that there are boats going into the Belize River. So we were trying to find out through our radio tracking, how often they are moving over towards the river to be in harm's way. And so with that information, then the government of Belize can act by putting up speed zones where it's necessary, where there's the most chance of boat and manatee conflicts. So they can make sure that at least in those areas, boats are going slowly enough so that not only do they not disturb manatees, but they don't hit them.
There's no Sharpie.
No Sharpie in there?
This time, the team hopes to install a satellite transmitter on a manatee to better identify which areas the species uses and eventually to regulate maritime traffic.
In the future, if they're not already, these animals are having problems with interactions with humans and boats and those kinds of things. We don't see evidence of a lot of scars like we do in Florida, but eventually we will. Once it's scarred, it's either scarred for life or it's dead. And when we see these scars, they came close to dying, but they survived and persisted. But they're going to carry that scar the rest of their life.
Flipper 3 now.
Tourism certainly is a wonderful thing for Belize. It's one of our biggest income earners for the country. But we try to make sure that we are informing tour guides in particular where the hot spots where manatees are, that they should be careful when they travel. For instance, the Belize River. That is a very beautiful location in Belize. It is used very heavily by tour boats, and it's also used very heavily by manatees.
Putting together, inserting the batteries for the satellite transmitter. This is what we will deploy in just a few minutes. It's all full of air, so it floats like a buoy. It has two transmitters. One transmitter transmits up to several satellites, and it has another transmitter that allows us to be able to follow it on the ground, on the water.
We're gonna wait to see this. Garbage?
How long will it last? It'll last about a year. The satellite part, it actually has a salt switch so that when it submerges under the water, it shuts it off. And then when it comes up to the surface again, it starts transmitting again, and that helps us save batteries.
Once a year.
Excellent.
Protecting their habitat is the only real hope we have of saving the last survivors of this endangered species.
Despite these conservation efforts in Belize, there are only between 500 and 1,000 manatees left. a very small number. Research must continue. The use of satellite transmitters will allow a better understanding of manatees' territories and come up with measures to protect habitats essential to their survival.
One of the things we're trying to find out are where the most important areas are that they go. And we do this so that when we're trying to establish protected areas, it's fine to protect one area here, but if the animal spends 50% of its time someplace else, you want to make sure that both areas are protected. So, and also the corridors in between. So this allows us to be able to find out what its critical habitat is and the corridors that they use to move in between. A number of them that we have tagged and with a collaborator in Mexico have come down from Mexico to Belize, to Southern Lagoon, for example, which we think might be an important nursery area. So this is the tether I was talking about. It won't knot. It's semi-flexible, and this prevents it from getting caught on and knotted up in mangrove. It's got a the belt has a weak link in it, and there's also a weak link inside here, so that if it does get caught on something, it will snap free. Okay.
We're just making sure that the tag works. So when you release the animal, you don't come out here and not able to find the tag because the frequency doesn't match the tag before we put it out. Because once it's out there, it's gone now.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
We can figure out the areas that they spend most of their times, and that will give us an idea to better manage the area that they hang out and protect them better.
Some people have asked that question, why is it important to protect manatees? These animals are resilient, they're tough, and with protection and with a buy-in from the community and the people, we will have manatees around for future generations to enjoy.
Buddy and Bob's team have captured over 20 manatees in under 2 weeks. This population is a model for research around the world, and this fantastic work will help us learn more about it. Manatees are excellent indicators of ocean health, especially in coastal regions. But they face the same threats everywhere: habitat degradation, pollution, and obviously, collisions with boats. Fortunately, there are scientists who dedicate their lives to protecting threatened species like the manatee. And the next generation is taking up the torch. Young people like Jamal, or Buddy before him, are passionate about the environment and protecting biodiversity. Dreams and passions often inspire great stories. When young people decide to save a threatened species when they grow up, it inspires hope. Dreams like these can be contagious and inspire others. That's what happened to Buddy years ago, who was inspired by Jacques Cousteau. And now Jamal, from the village of Gales Point, is taking inspiration from new mentors like Buddy and Bob. We're headed to Costa Rica in Central America, a country that is known for its extraordinary biodiversity. In fact, over 25% of the land is now protected, and tourists from around the world come to visit the country to enjoy its wonderful ecology.
Framed by the Caribbean to the east and the Pacific to the west, Costa Rica is located between Nicaragua and Panama. Its lush forests are home to one of the last big cats of the Americas, the jaguar. This mythical animal has suffered from habitat fragmentation and the continual reduction of its hunting territory. The jaguar's troubled coexistence with humans now threatens the very future of the species. The team heads to the highlands of Costa Rica, to a private reserve in the Talamanca region. In this protected area, scientists can study the jaguar's behavior. The farm also hosts Aboriginal families who are rediscovering their roots and an old harmony with nature. The team is meeting with scientists Jan Schipper and Jose Gonzalez of the Sierra to Sea Institute. Jose is a jaguar specialist and knows the reserve very well.
Jaguar is probably one of the most amazing animals in America. This is one of the last big predators we have. Only pumas share the same, like the same ecology and niche. It's their third largest cat in the world. And well, it can go from 30 kilos up to 100, 120. They can live around in the wild around 20 years. There's some cases reported of, like longer, but usually they die before because they get old and it's difficult for them to hunt.
Jaguars exist as a symbol for wild, as a symbol that we still have places where big predators can exist and prey base can exist.
Genetic studies have shown that jaguars actually belong to a single family, extending from Argentina to Mexico. However, as forests continue to shrink, jaguar populations are increasingly confined to isolated pockets, small areas that are often not connected by migration corridors.
We have identified so far in the farm 12 different individuals. It's a big concentration because there's no hunting, there's a good prey base, we have all the mammal assemblage, entire complete mammal assemblage. And so this is probably a shelter, a good shelter for them. So it's what we call in population biology a source population. So animals, breed here, produce here, and they move out and colonize other areas. So right now we're going to where we set up the trap and one snare and a couple camera traps. It's in the middle of the forest and the road is not very good, so it's gonna take a little while and hopefully not many raining. It's pretty hard to drive. Whoa. We saw this morning some fresh tracks, so I think we have really good chances, but obviously these are really, really smart animals, so well, you never know, it's a matter of luck. Hopefully we'll get the animal.
The biologists hope to capture a jaguar. They want to install a satellite transmitter that would tell them about how the jaguars make use of their territory.
So we use some pheromones to attract the animals, and we set them in these small sticks all the way, so like pointing at the trap.
And you can see the two cameras right over here.
Oh yeah, so, yeah, the cameras too, here and here, and this is the trap. So it has a little mechanism like right in the bottom. It's just like a small table. If the animal steps on it, this gate just falls down. Yep. We're gonna check it right now just to see if it's working fine. Ay, ay, ay.
These little cameras here detect heat and motion. So anytime something warm passes in front of the camera, it will take a picture. These will work day and night, and they can take video and still images. Okay, so we've got a couple of different kinds of baits here to choose from. What we put on this one so far is the fat cat predator bait. These are pheromones mixed with some urine and other things that we can use to try and bring the cat in.
And the cats like them. The
Well,
jaguars, they like
we don't know if they like it, but they're attracted to it. This attracts a lot of other things too. We don't just get cats, we'll get bees, as you can see, insects, butterflies are very attracted to this.
Even other mammals like tapirs,
Other mammals.
Yeah, it's something really different, and they're not used to these strong smells.
Yep.
So it's just something to attract animals in general.
Okay, what we're going to do now is just take a little bit of this other pheromone, which has a little bit more scent to it. It's a little bit stronger. And we're going to apply it here to the side of the tree. This way we can disperse the scent across the trail a little bit better. I can use a stick to sort of put it wherever I want, but this moss holds the scent nicely, even if it rains. So I can just take a little bit of this and just apply it on to the side of here and spread it out just a little bit.
Okay. So I think we're gonna use this place here. It's narrow, we can close it. There's a couple bakery entrances around. I think it's gonna be perfect.
This is to create a natural path for him.
Natural path, yeah. He's not gonna jump over that. He's just looking for the easiest way.
So, Jose, what are the chances that we catch one?
I think we have great chances. The place is great. I mean, this road, it's used lots of time by the jaguars and pumas. The place is really safe. There's only one path, so I think we have great chances. It's a great place, not harm for the animal, so it's probably fine.
With jaguars, it's like a game of hide and seek. Once you are there, you need to erase all traces because they can detect us from afar. They are very cunning animals.
During his years tracking jaguars of the reserve, Jose has managed to photo-identify many animals. He can now recognize them by the different pigmentation patterns of their fur. Approximately 6% of jaguars are melanistic, or all black. These are often called panthers. Cameras installed on trees allow biologists to photograph other animals of the forest as well, such as pumas or even the jaguar's prey. All this data is essential because observing a jaguar in the wild is rare. Sometimes the videos captured by these cameras are simply astonishing.
Oh, look at that.
Oh my
What's
God.
this? What is that? Is that a cow?
That's definitely a cow, and that looks like Cora.
Yeah, that's Cora. Amazing. This is amazing.
That cow's probably been dead for at least 2 or 3 days. You can see by all the flies and the entrails coming out.
Yeah.
You don't see that every day.
No.
These images are rare and valuable, but they also demonstrate the problems of coexistence between cattle farmers and forest predators, like the jaguar.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. Look at that.
That's a big jaguar.
Look at that. See the string in his
Look at that.
mouth. Wow.
And there she goes.
Oh, amazing. That is awesome. That's great.
That is awesome.
To avoid possible injury to an animal, it is important to check the traps every 4 hours, day or night.
Ready? Yep.
Capturing a jaguar is certainly not a simple task. They are very cunning animals, but we are patient.
Nothing, eh?
Nothing. Oh, but wait a second. Look at that. Hey, guys. There's a track.
Oh, yeah.
Let's try to look for more, probably more tracks.
Careful stepping over.
Yeah.
Trap's right here. Oh, there's another track over here. Looks like he came in this way and went right up to the trap and right over it.
Oh, yeah.
We missed.
It's really frustrating because it's days we've been trying. We thought we were getting anywhere, and then we saw that there was a track just nearby, and we missed out.
So close. Ah, that was close.
This. Look at that.
Converting forest into agricultural land causes a significant loss of jaguar habitat. Less forested areas means less prey for forest predators such as the jaguar. So it is not surprising to see big cats attacking livestock. Coexistence between jaguars and livestock farmers has become a serious issue for the conservation of large forest predators.
We need actually to work really hard with people, and we need to work on agricultural landscapes and, you know, like all the private lands, because we need areas where the animals can move between protected areas with no harm, not causing conflict, not getting hunted. We have passed the paradigm of working only in protected areas. Now we need to focus on the areas that are not protected but are critical.
Yeah.
The team has decided to widen its search area. Jose and Jan want to investigate every part of the farm to study the movement of the jaguars.
Yeah, this is a perfect place. Ah, look at there, look at there.
Oh, yeah.
Those are jaguar marks.
Wow, even there.
All the way up.
So that's a good spot for jaguar.
This is a perfect spot. Yeah, this is the place we should set up the camera. Yeah. Can you hold there, please? Yep. So usually we use this height because we can catch pretty much any mammal that comes in front of it. We always use these shady areas so we don't get sunlight direct to it.
Historically, native peoples lived within jaguar range for hundreds of thousands of years without a whole lot of problems. As populations of humans expanded, the parks sort of had to draw the lines and put fences up, and that's been the major problem. If you just fence these parks off, it's just not enough area, and you can't, especially in an area as small as Costa Rica, even 25% of the nation, put in some kind of protection just isn't enough because you have little blocks of habitat all over, none of which are really big enough to support jaguar.
Yes, I think seeing the farm from the air will give you a very good perspective of the work we're trying to do.
It is the biggest private forest reserve in Costa Rica held by one person. Over 25,000 acres. Wow. Yeah, you see the border of the farm, you see? That goes for many, 20-some kilometers that way.
So from here, everything to the right is the challenge that we face. Everything to the right here is what we need to talk about in terms of connectivity. You can see there's only little patches here and there of forest with agriculture, clear-cut areas for cattle and so forth. So each one of those has a sort of value system in terms of what use they can be for animals to go through. Pastures obviously has very little value in terms of a jaguar being able to cross. But some of these agroforestry areas you can see here, which is a mix of trees and sustainable agriculture types, is actually something a jaguar will pass through. So we don't necessarily need continuous virgin forest from here to the coast. We just need a mix of forest types along with different types of more sustainable agriculture to connect it. That's a lot easier to sell that to landowners instead of saying, oh, we need to take your land away and put it in conservation. what we need to do is teach people better ways to manage their land so that all the different species can survive here together.
Yeah.
The problems of the rainforest are not only caused by deforestation, there are a host of other factors. For example, in the neighboring country, Panama, the habitats are also threatened.
Panama is known for its famous canal, which allows ships from around the world to pass quickly between the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. Globalization and shipping are responsible for the ever-increasing spread of invasive foreign species. The arrival of a new animal, bacteria, or even fungus can often seriously upset the balance in ecosystems. For example, in Panama, frogs are disappearing. A mysterious microscopic fungus has invaded the country and is quickly killing off many of the rainforest's amphibians. The golden frog is the emblem of Panama, but you won't find any in the wild. It is now considered extinct, and only a handful of survivors remain in captivity. Biologist Edgardo Griffith is trying to understand the strange disease affecting Panama's amphibians. The team accompanied him to a river that he has studied extensively.
This is like prime golden frog habitat. This is like a very good breeding area because it's fast-moving water. The first time I came to this stream was in 2003, and I was impressed with so many frogs and large numbers of them. So in a way, to me sometimes was like, how can they, all manage to be in such a small stream and be successful and eat and breed in here? But it was just so many. I could spend hours, 10, 12 hours, just sitting, getting recordings of the vocalization. The water, the stream, especially like in quiet pools, the whole bottom of the stream was moving because it was just loaded with tadpoles, and by seeing that, you knew that it was a healthy environment. Watch your head here.
And then what happened?
At the end of 2005, beginning of 2006, we knew about this fungus that was moving from the west, coming, eastward. And we knew that it was going to get here. And we anticipated that it was going to arrive around 2007, but the fungus arrived in 2006.
The Kirtid fungus arrived in Panama in 2006, and it was devastating. Frogs started dying at an alarming rate, and scientists were powerless to stop it.
Some scientists believe that the fungus dates back to the 1930s and 40s, when a species of African frog, Xenopus laevis, was used to develop pregnancy tests. At the time, scientists found that hormones in the urine of pregnant women caused egg laying in this species. It was an important and promising scientific discovery, and Xenopus laevis was sent to laboratories around the world. Though it's self-resistant to the disease, the frog was a carrier of the chytrid fungus. So the fungal pathogen was spread around the world. It mutated to a new form and invaded much of the tropical rainforest, killing most of the amphibians in its path. Found mostly in wetlands, the fungus acts like a sealant on amphibian skin. Because amphibians breathe partly through their skin, the chytrid fungus causes a series of metabolic problems. Eventually, the frog suffocates and dies. Some have survived, but many species have gone extinct. Today, the disease continues to wreak havoc around the world, and unfortunately, there are no effective cures for the epidemic.
It's crazy when you think about it. Edgardo has already identified 56 species of frogs in this simple little stream. Today, finding one is a challenge. And the golden frog of Panama, the very emblem of the country, is considered extinct everywhere in the wild.
The fungus kill 90% of the amphibian community, in some cases 100% of the individuals of certain species. Came, kill, stay, and at the same time it's moving. It's moving eastward towards the Darien or towards Colombia, but it's also coming up from South America.
You cut the sound of the stream, few insects. I mean, it's really quiet.
It's extremely quiet. For somebody that's been here before, that knows how noisy this stream was, frog-wise, it's remarkable not to be able to hear them, you know. And it's just, you know, it gets you. It gets you, and it's not just the feeling of, you know that the frogs are missing, but to know that they're missing is really sad, actually. And, you know, a lot of us goes away when the frogs are disappearing, you know, and I don't want people to feel that way. In this tree, I found what I call the last golden frog 2 years ago. It was at night, and she was sleeping up there. The animals that are left have no opportunity if we don't take them out of their environment and put them in captivity. And for as ugly as that sounds, it's the only option. But if somebody can come up with another solution, I would be more than willing to try.
Captivity is the only option for the moment. So they built small, sterile laboratories where they housed the last forest specimens. It's a little crazy. Everything must be sterilized when you enter the lab, because just on the other side of the door is the fungus ready to kill. And it's also crazy at the same time to think that we've had to build modern Noah's Arks to save the last living examples of a species from the devastation brought on by humans.
The reason why we had to build this center was to reduce the risk of extinction of certain species of amphibians that were being affected by a fungal disease. So the only option for us was to go to the field and collect most of the time sick animals, and we brought them here and we applied treatments to help them get rid of the fungus. And the goal of this facility is to, you know, keep as many as we can in captivity until we can bring them to where they belong. Some of the animals that we have here are the last of their kind. They represent what's still alive of one particular species from around this area. Sad enough, you know. I'm a biologist. I used to be a field biologist. Now I think I'm like an extinction biologist. As you see here, we have a lot of tanks, hundreds of tanks, and within those tanks we have hundreds of plants and rocks. And one of our biggest challenge here is to make sure that the fungus that we know that's right outside that door doesn't get in here. So we have to disinfect constantly everything that comes into the facility to make sure that that fungus stays out there and not in this facility. The center in Panama City could be seen somehow as a Noah's Ark. Back then was God's will. Nowadays what's happening is because we are causing it. So we are the ones that have to come up with ideas, with Noah's Ark, and make sure that we bring those animals to where they belong, because they don't belong to a facility. They belong to this stream, you know.
The team scours the riverbanks for hours without finding a single frog. In the face of such carnage, scientists can do nothing. For the moment, they have no solution. They are merely trying to gain time, making every effort to capture and save the last individuals able to resist the disease.
There's one.
But it's a daunting task.
This is a male, Mylisca sila. And this is a species of tree frog. Normally, we don't find them during the day like it was here or like in the stream, you know. You normally find them on the side, you know, side pools, then bank, in the bank. But this animal, I don't think that's in a, you know, 100% in a healthy site, because a healthy frog of this species will be trying to escape, to run away in a very energetic way. Like, you know, they're really strong based on, you know, according to the size. Some of these animals might have a heavy infection and they still survive.
So after more than 5 hours, he's the only one that we found.
That's how bad it is. You know, 5 years ago, we probably already seen, you know, a couple hundred, 300-400 frogs in, you know, the 200 meters that we have walked. And it's how bad it is. It's how empty this place is, you know, one single guy.
Could you see some effect already, you know, into that ecosystem?
Well, yes. You know, first of all, in the water, you see a lot more algae growing over the rocks. And also, there are a lot of parasites and mosquitoes and things that can easily transmit diseases that we don't even know that they exist yet, because amphibians were there to keep all these things in check in a way.
So the entire equilibrium is broken.
It's totally broken. It's compromised. And, you know, but by saying this, I'm not saying that it's too late, because if we come together, because I know we can, to find a solution, I think that not just amphibians will be back, but everything else is related to the amphibians, including the forest.
Some regions, such as the lowlands of Panama, are less affected by the chytrid fungus. For scientists like Roberto Ibanez, it is important to focus research in these areas to try and understand why some species are more resistant than others.
We arrived at the river at dusk and started our trek. We began to hear frogs, and it was a sign of hope for us. Of course, we didn't hear much, but already it was very encouraging.
What species it is?
That is a glass frog, and it's a male that is calling and has a egg mass just next to it. The males guard the eggs once they are laid on the leaves.
That's a tree frog.
It's a tree frog, yes. But they are called glass frogs because you can see the bones through their skin and the internal organs.
At present, this fungi is found not only in the highlands but also in the lowlands of Panama. Yet we don't know much about what is happening with the amphibian populations in the lowlands.
Right here.
Yeah. Good. Qué bueno. This is a very interesting species, because in places that are already infected or that have declined, you still find this species around. So this one might be one of the species that we need to focus more into it and see why is they survive, you know. And even though this is not endangered species, it's important to do this kind of surveys because it tells us if we have this fungus around this area. She might be infected, but she's not sick. Yeah. You know? All right, now we're gonna let this little guy go.
The export of organisms is a problem all over the world. And we know this because it isn't the first time we hear of it. Often organisms that are introduced into new areas become vehicles for pathogens or potential pathogens, harming the ecosystems into which they are introduced.
One morning at Edgardo's research center, the news was not very good. A specimen of a very rare species had died of an unknown cause. Obviously, captivity is not an ideal solution, but right now it is the only one scientists have found.
You know what happened? I think that because she was gravid and we didn't put a female in the tank. You know, the eggs got bad. We used to have 3 of these species, or at least 3 animals that look similar that were collected in the same stream. So this is a big, loss for us. What we're gonna do is try to get as much information from this animal as possible that we can use to make sure that the other 2 that we have stay alive and with us. And if they turn out to be a new species, they will be even more important than they are right now. We don't have a cure for this fungus. We can cure the animals once let's say I come here, I find a frog, I collect the frog, then I go to the lab and I give a treatment to that frog to help the frog to get rid of the fungus. So voila, yes, the frog is cured. But if I bring that frog back here, she will get reinfected and die. It's a fact. We've seen it many times. They are important. They are as important as an elephant, as a tiger, as the white shark. They all have a role in the environment, and they all belong to a place, and they are all part of something. So we need to make sure that amphibians continue doing the dirty job for us.
But I think there is still some hope. For example, in Costa Rica, where we work with jaguars, a species of frog is defying the prognostics of science.
One day, in the Talamanca Reserve, a child came up to Jose. In his hands, he held a strange little frog he had found near the river. The scientists were astonished.
Here are some marks.
So that's the site?
Yeah. We have found a couple here, so we probably may be luck. There. Wow. It's a beautiful little frog.
Do you know when they discovered the fungus around here?
Yeah, actually, the last time it was 17 years ago. When they discovered this population, there was already declining, and they reported actually the extinction and disappearance of the frog in the river. And that's where they discovered the fungus here. It is officially recorded as extinct here and in all Costa Rica right now.
Do we know why this population is resilient?
That's exactly what we're studying right now, actually. This is a unique opportunity because we don't know if it's resilient or if it's tolerant. Maybe the fungus also changed. So this is like a live laboratory to study amphibian decline and why this population is recovering, as in many other parts that they disappear and they're gone.
So this frog, in a way, is bringing lots of hope.
It is lots of hope, because if this one is recovering, there's hope for other species in the country and in the neotropics to be recovering. And also this part is really important in amphibian diversity. So that means that if we found this population, probably, eventually, and hopefully we're gonna find other species that were totally and considered extinct in Costa Rica.
The rainforest is threatened from all sides, but I think it is important to understand the critical role played by each link of the food chain, each species in its ecosystem. The jaguar, for example, is what one would call an umbrella species, in that they control other populations that interact within the same ecosystem. The role of the jaguar is very important, just like that of the frog.
So, bad news.
Nothing?
Nothing. We checked all the traps again.
Well, that's life, I suppose.
Yep, we're obviously very concerned about what might be causing this. We're looking into it. I think the next steps for us are to put out some more camera traps and just re-survey the entire area, because we know how many individuals there are and which ones are around. We can actually go back and see which ones are missing from the population and maybe do an estimate of what's happened. Yeah. Even if we have all this conservation momentum behind us, it can just take a few people to come in and maybe snare some animals, which is what we're hearing, maybe using some of the bear snares that they use in the U.S. that are kill traps. It's depressing.
That's sad.
It's the reality we live in.
Yeah. No, nothing. No tracks. No tracks around.
We didn't see signs. We were on trails in an area we've been working for 5 years with very positive signs for jaguar and puma and a lot of their prey. We had no signs whatsoever that they were jaguar in that area. And because that's the low part of the farm that borders with the outside world, we're very concerned that maybe poachers have been coming in there and using some illegal snares to kill the jaguar.
It's early morning in the small village of the reserve, and the people are on alert. Rumors are circulating that poachers may have come into the reserve. Everyone lends a hand. Every effort must be made to protect the jaguars.
We actually have a picture here.
Oh, this is a picture that came off of Facebook.
Oh, that's sad.
It's a shame. I mean, they're really rare, and this was just for fun, you know.
And these are young kids. I mean, look how young they are. These are the people we need to be reaching out to make sure that the next generation doesn't grow up like the one that we currently face. Yeah. Yeah. They can be teaching their parents, but I think if we can convince them that this is a problem and that they shouldn't be taking pride in posting pictures like this on Facebook, that maybe we can change the future for these species.
A private militia is preparing to go hunting for poachers. Here, conservation measures are not just expressed with words.
It's actually kind of worrying because there are some rumors of heavy poaching and hunting in the area, and in general in the country recently, so many jaguar deaths, and unfortunately that could be affecting the animals and the population in general. It's something really worrying, and we need to find out what's happening with the population.
The farm has had anywhere between 9 to 16 armed guards protecting the borders during night and day, and they've done a really good job at keeping out the poachers. It's a reality that we have to face, because if we don't do that, then we're going to suffer from the syndrome that the park suffers from, and that's this repeat poachers coming in over and over again and removing the animals from the park. On one side, we have this paradigm of having a set-aside reserves, but I don't think that's going to be the future of our planet. Setting aside reserves and parks that don't allow people to go in there is nice, and I think it has to be done in some areas, but we really need to start figuring out how to get these 9 million people into the forest so they can appreciate what's going on outside of the cities.
Bueno, ¿es aquí entonces? ¿Es aquí?
I know of at least 3 jaguars that have been killed just outside the property. They've been confirmed, but there are actually rumors of 11. That's a lot. Recently, there seems to be a growing business for jaguar skins, so we're trying to find out who is behind it.
Entonces decía Fernando que
I was telling Fernando how sad I am, because it's as if they were threatening members of my own family. I don't know what we'll do with these hunters. It worries us. It's really frustrating. So many years of work, of love, of sacrifices, just to witness our jaguars being killed.
The introduction of invasive species, deforestation, loss of habitat. The menaces to the tropical forest are numerous, and quite frankly, we may be running out of time.
There's no time to feel sad about this situation because that's not going to fix anything. I think we can work together mainly for the animals, but also for future generations so that when they look back, they'll say, yeah, those guys knew that it was a problem and they came up with a solution. And they will be thankful for that.
I'm optimistic because I believe we can change things, and if people and human being realizes the importance, there's still something we can do, but we are right on the edge. If we protect jaguars, that means that we can protect a vast majority of biodiversity.
Fortunately, everywhere on the planet, there are scientists who are organizing to protect habitats. And I think we should heed them more, because these men and women really dedicate their lives to saving the planet's biodiversity, and they are all saying the same thing. If we organize, we are capable of great things. But it is important that we act, and that we act now.